Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I'm your host, Alex Harriman, here with my co-host, Kelly Sarlo. We are two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Good. I know this is airing a little bit later, but we just came off the Easter long weekend as we're recording this, and we had too much chocolate over the weekend, that's for sure, because our little guy is one of the only grandchildren in the family. So we decided for his egg hunt that we were going to, as I told you, put Lego pieces in all of his plastic eggs instead of chocolate. So we literally dumped out a new Lego set, hid them in a color-coded scheme, and at the end he got to build a Lego, and that was Easter.
So cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I had a little bit of FOMO. I really love Lego, and I wish that someone would do that for me.
I'll do that for you one day.
Oh, thank you.
But it's gonna be like one of those Dollarama sets that has like 12 pieces because I just don't have it in me to hide that many Easter eggs for.
Ask Emerson. I love it.
Okay, today we've been having a lot of people ask about how hormonal changes affect our progress, how aging affects our progress, how menopause or illnesses, injuries. So how do these things affect our overall fat loss and body composition progress? So I wanted to talk about it a little bit today. I know it's a bit of a controversial topic, so by all means open to feedback and conversation on the topic. I just want to give my opinion and our opinion on all of this. Yeah. Anything you want to add there before we get rolling?
No, I like how you set up the show to be an invitation for conversation, because there are things that we know, there are things that other people know, right, from their professions, and the intention is to integrate knowledge so that people can find themselves in all of this and their journey and be a part of the conversation instead of accepting what, you know, myths they've learned from the past, that at a certain age you're going to stop losing fat, at a certain age you're going to start gaining weight, right? Like, this is to debunk a lot of that. So I'm excited that they are going to be a part of this.
Awesome. And there's not I hate to ever say absolutes in health and fitness, and I know I do it sometimes, but there's not. There's a lot of different opinions, and there's some truths and false in a lot of what we say, and what other professionals say. So you have to figure out what works for you, what makes sense for you, and take what you like and leave what you don't, basically. Um, so that being said, I would encourage anybody listening to challenge your own beliefs, because I think it's really easy to say, no, I don't believe that. That's not true. Right? Challenge your beliefs.
Especially if you don't like it, right? Just deciding you don't like something doesn't make it false.
Yeah, for sure. So, um, the list, so the list is can go on, but the list of things I had written down. So there's age, gender, genetics, hormonal changes, injuries, illnesses, um, menopause, menstrual cycle. There's different stages of childbirth for women, for that matter. The list can go on and on. Uh, all of these things affect your fat loss journey. So I'm going to start by saying that they all do. And there's a second list that I'm going to give you now that also affects your fat loss journey. The first one is consistency, consistency with nutrition, consistency with movement, intensity. So intensity with your exercise or your movement, intensity with your days on and your days off. So in that, if you have a cheat day or a day off plan, how out of proportion it goes. There's total daily movement. There's your sleep, your stress, and the amount that you exercise, specific exercise or train your body. These factors all also affect your fat loss. So what I've done here is list number one is all things we don't have control over. List number two are all things we do have control over to some extent. Some people say, well, I don't have control over my stress. You have some control over your stress. You have control over what adds and removes stress from your life. You have control over attempts at sleeping. You might not have full control over your sleep or stress, but you have some control. So those two lists, list one, we have no control over. List two, we have control over. Anything you want to add before I keep going?
I fucking love your brain. Go on.
So the list we don't have control over, before we even go any further into this, isn't worth worrying about too much. Right? Like they are affecting you, but if you can't control them, why are we allowing them to control us, to stress us out, to worry about? Right? The other list that we have full control over is the one that most people neglect the most, the stuff that we can control. So I want you right now to change the way we think and to start thinking about how can I work on this whole list of things I have control over and see how that impacts my journey before I stress about the fact that I'm aging, before I stress about the fact that my family, I've got a huge slew of medical conditions in my family, and I'm bound to get them through the genetic predispositions. We need to look at this stuff first that we can control. Um, so the great news is this stuff in list two, the stuff we have control over, has a far greater impact on our fat loss journey, on our body composition journey. And so this is the part that's going to get controversial because I know some people are going to challenge that. Some people aren't going to like to hear that. They're going to say, well, no, I can't make progress because of X, Y, and Z. The truth is, the stuff in list two has a far greater impact. If we want to lose weight, we need a calorie deficit. If we want to gain weight, we need a calorie surplus. The challenging part of that is we don't know what our metabolic rate is at any given time. So our metabolic rate is constantly changing. It changes throughout the day, the week, the months, the years. It changes with all our lifestyle changes. That metabolic rate is always changing. If we stay below it as it changes, we lose weight. But we can't always do that because sometimes it dips and it takes a second to catch up and realize it dipped. Sometimes it goes up and we have this massive deficit, and then all of a sudden our energy plummets and we feel like shit, and we're like, what's going on? Oh, my metabolism's through the roof right now. I need to eat a little bit more, get a little bit closer, feel a little bit better. So that there's not an easy way to know what your metabolic rate is at. But all of these factors in list two have a huge impact on your metabolic rate, huge impact, regardless of any of the factors in list one. Now, circling back to list one, all of these factors also have an impact on your metabolic rate. So you might be going through menopause or one of the stages of menopause right now, and it might be having a great impact on your metabolic rate. The good news is that's cyclical. It's not that it knocked it down and you're down here forever. It also ebbs and flows, has highs and lows. If it has knocked it down and you're like, what the heck? Everything I've been doing isn't working right now, but I was making progress and now it's paused. There's a good chance you're gonna have to just ride that storm out for a little bit. And you're gonna have to stay consistent and you're gonna have to be okay with a short phase of maintenance and a short phase of focusing on minimizing the damage. Because in order to make progress in that period of time, the sacrifices you would have to make to then create a calorie deficit probably aren't worth it. It's still possible though. You could still go back to the factors in list two, move more, eat less. You could apply all of those factors in list two to then again create a calorie deficit, but that's not always the goal, guys. It's okay to be like, okay, it's difficult right now. Things are really challenging me right now. So instead of focusing on progress, I'm going to focus on maintenance, knowing that this cycle is going to come back around. My metabolic rate will start climbing up again, and then progress will be easier. There's a light at the end of that tunnel. Where did you want to add something?
Just to point out that what you're saying right there assumes your honesty about your ruthless consistency. And we don't mean consistency Monday through Friday. We don't mean consistency for the last 2 weeks. We mean like over a duration of a long period of time, ruthless consistency, right? And I think a lot of people will hear what you're saying and discard what I just said and use it as their excuse to say, oh, well, it's this, right? And
Mm.
I'm fairly consistent. I eat fairly well, and I go to Zumba once a week. And it's like that's not what we're talking about when we're saying consistency with your nutrition and your movement.
Yeah, it's that only really applies to the person who has been making progress and all of a sudden isn't.
Yeah.
If you have never been making progress or you haven't been making progress for months or years, chances are you haven't done a deep enough dive into list two.
Yeah, because a lot of people, admittedly, I'm not saying that, they're not willing to admit these things, will come in or inquire about our program and say, "Well, I'm in menopause now and I need to lose weight. I've gained 20 pounds or 15 pounds." And it's like, "Okay, that's still a great goal, but like you're saying, were you making efforts before? You're noticing that maybe that metabolism has shifted in its cyclical way, um, but we didn't have any of the tools being implemented before. So we
Yeah.
can't necessarily just say menopause is a problem.
Yeah.
We actually weren't being active in our health and fitness journey beforehand."
Yep. And now there's probably some people screaming listening to this right now. So there are some illnesses and hormonal changes that you probably aren't going to defeat, at least for a period of time. But we don't know that until you have all of list two in check.
Yeah.
And most people don't. And I'll argue that with almost every single person that comes to me and says, well, I have this condition, so I can't. If you can honestly tell yourself, you don't need to tell me because I don't need you to tell me. You need to be able to tell yourself. If you can honestly tell yourself that your nutrition consistency and movement's on point, you're not going off the rails on your off days, your movement, your daily movement's great, you've got your sleep and stress as under control as possible, and you're scheduling and prioritizing workouts. If you can tell me you've got, or tell yourself, sorry, you can tell yourself you've got all of those under check, then there's definitely a possibility that something in list one's holding you back. It should only be holding you back temporarily, but if it's holding you back long term, you need to schedule an appointment with your medical doctor.
Yes. And let's also spell out the fact that list two alleviates or exacerbates list one. Right? So, like you said, there will be some real illnesses or genetics that are going to complicate things from list one. But if you're not working consistently at list two, the rest of the body is giving all of its focus, right, to the unhealthy aspects of our life rather than alleviating as much as we possibly can to get the rest of the body working healthily so that it's not hyper focused on this thing that's either causing weight gain, lethargy, etc.
Imagine these two scenarios. Scenario one, person has list two under control, everything's going great. They're burning, say, 2,000 calories a day. And then all of a sudden, something from list one drops metabolic rate. They're only burning 1,400 calories a day. So um, now they've lost a 600 calorie advantage they had, and they were eating, say they were eating also 2,000 calories a day, so they were staying the same. Now all of a sudden metabolic rate has dropped for a period of time. There's now a 600 calorie surplus happening per day, meaning they're gaining a pound approximately every 6 days. By them still focusing and controlling that list, they're gaining a pound every 6 days. By scenario two, person two saying, ah, fuck it, I can't make progress. I'm just gonna eat 2,400 calories because it feels better. That person now is gaining almost 2 pounds in the time that person one is gaining 1 pound. And that's what we actually start to see happen much, much more often. Is the one of these factors in list one limits you for a period of time. You get frustrated, you throw in the towel, and you start to regress rapidly as a result. If you focus on the stuff in list two, even if you can't make progress for a period of time, you're minimizing the damage, you're maintaining, you're setting yourself up for success as soon as there is an opportunity to make progress. You throw in the towel, I promise you, you're making this journey almost impossible, if not impossible, way more harder for yourself because there's going to be ebbs and flows in your metabolic rate the rest of your life. So if we can maintain when metabolic rate's low and progress when metabolic rate's high, we make progress. If we regress when metabolic rate's low and progress when metabolic rate's high, we're just fighting that battle back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We're riding that roller coaster for the rest of our lives. We're never going to make progress.
Yeah. And I mean, we could also get into all kinds of other conversation about the fact that you're breaking a pattern of really healthy discipline by saying fuck it. Discipline is harder to get back to when you have given up on that consistency, right? So when your body does go through its cycles and maybe things do come back to an optimal place with your metabolism, how will you even know if you've thrown in the towel and you're still blaming this thing that might have already gone through its cycle and alleviated itself?
Yep. Yep. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's been a ton of research lately to suggest this. There's been a ton of research lately to suggest that age really plays very little role on our metabolic rate, but instead, the lifestyle choices that we've made leading up to that age have a greater impact. I mean, there's not many people that can say that they still move the way they moved 20 years ago, that they're still as active as they were 20 years ago, that they're still you might be eating as well or similar to the way you were 20 years ago, but chances are you're not nearly as active, meaning that you're giving up muscle mass and you are slowly losing your metabolic rate as a result of that, not as a result of the number going up.
I've thought often sitting at a desk as a coach all day long, how nice it would be to have bells that we used to have to get us from class to class, just as a reminder to get up and move, right? I had to walk to my next period two, period three class. I don't have to
Yeah.
do that anymore. Like in my 8 hour day that would have been school, I actually moved more
Yeah,
than I do right now.
for sure you did. For sure you did. And you guys can apply that to your own lifestyles too, right? Like you can set reminder bells to go walk around your house twice before you come back and sit down again.
Yeah. And I think about, new parents versus, parents who have teenagers who are independent. You're not chasing them like you used to. You're not watching them, checking in on them, moving around your house, kind of monitoring anymore. There's a lot less movement just naturally.
Totally. Totally. Okay, that's it.
Love it.
I hope you guys found it helpful. I hope it did challenge some of your beliefs or at least spark some thoughts for you. Um, it's a tough topic and it's one it's frustrating for a lot of people. I get that. Just know that it's not impossible. It's not impossible to make progress.
All right. I will say that's a story that you can keep telling yourself that it's a tough topic. And I'm talking to listeners, not to you. If you keep list one as your story, then you're going to hang on to it and you're going to make this really personal. If you're focusing on list two, it's not personal. You're just focusing on what you can control, right? And that's where you're going to find a lot more freedom, a lot less resistance to the journey actually changing. And if we're going to leave them with a tip today, focus on list two.
Totally. Yeah. Don't stress about the things that you have no control over, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening. Um, wherever you are listening, please do us a favor and like it, comment on it, rate it, leave us some feedback, reach out to us if you have questions. If you want to take the deeper dive into these topics, shoot us a message. Let's have that conversation and see if we can help you get past those hurdles that are holding you back on your health and fitness journeys. It's what we do. It's what we've done for years now, and we'd love to do it with you too.